Coach mocks boy at baseball match. Unaware kid's dad is standing behind with bat. Holy Christ. Didn't y'all eat breakfast this morning? Justin, what the hell? Fast. Fast. Gosh, you're running like a little girl. Coach Karl yelled, his jaws clenched in rage. The coach had spent months preparing the boys for the match and had been hellbent on making his team win. But when he realized his son, 17-year-old Todd, the league's most promising player, was losing by a large margin due to the team's lousy performance, he couldn't contain his rage. Damn it. Justin, you're a freaking disaster. You're pitiful. Just pathetic, he grumbled, shouting at the youngster in front of everyone. Right then, Coach Karl felt a strong grip on his shoulder. What the hell, he snapped, turning around and shoving the hand away. Who in the world are you? What do you want? He asked. Your game's over, coach. And this has been long overdue. Danny announced, swinging his baseball bat and delivering a strong blow to the coach's knees. Arg. What the coach winced in pain, tumbling to the ground. What the hell are you doing? Are you out of your bloody mind? He cried. Danny kneeled down and leaned closer to him. You are under arrest, coach. And yes, he whispered into his ears. This blow is also for how you mistreated my son. Coach Karl's face turned pale. AAA, arrest? What are you talking about? I'm not your guy. Oh. Danny smiled, rising to his feet. You're smarter than I thought, coach. Look at you, still putting on that innocent facade. You're being investigated for a brutal murder, he declared. Now, would you like me to narrate what you've done, or are you going to confess to your crimes? Coach Karl's heart skipped a beat, and the blood drained from his face. Danny was having his evening tea when he saw his son, Justin, was home after baseball practice. Usually, he would brag about his stints on the field, but that evening, he tossed away his baseball gear and sank onto the couch, sulking. What's wrong, buddy? Danny approached the boy. I think my baseball career is over even before it started, Dad, Justin sighed. The coach benched me today, and... Relax, champ. We all have good and bad days, don't we? Said Danny, trying to cheer up his son. It's not that, Dad. First, someone killed our club director right near the training base weeks ago. Now the entire area is fenced off, and we can't train there, he revealed disappointedly. All you see there are those ugly crime scene tapes. Not cool at all. Hey, cheer up, champion. I know the police will wrap whatever they're up to very soon, and you boys will be able to train. Yeah? Danny encouraged the boy. Come on, you gotta relax. But nothing could cheer Justin. He told his father they had an away game for the playoff spot, and their team could have gone further. There would have been sponsors and scouts from other groups, and they would have been well prepared, but now none of that would happen because they didn't even have a proper base for training. I see, Danny sighed, an idea forming at the back of his head. Look, you ain't got nothing to worry about, okay? I'll see what I can do. I'm gonna make a few calls, find out what's going on, and maybe we can figure out how long all of this is gonna take, and maybe we could make the process faster, so you guys can return to your practice. Really, Dad? Justin's face lit up. Well, I could try. Danny smiled and shrugged. Thanks, Dad. Justin said and left for his room. Once Justin was gone, Danny called his partner, John, to inquire about the club director's case. How far along are we in the investigation, mate? Any leads that could help us? He asked. I'm afraid the case reached a dead end a couple of days ago, Chief, John said. It appears that the victim was bludgeoned, but none of the cameras captured anything. The attacker clearly avoided areas that were under monitoring. Aside from that, there are no fingerprints or witnesses. The other team is still looking for leads, but I don't see this getting over any soon. Geez, that's crazy. All right, thanks. As Danny hung up the phone, he couldn't stop thinking about the incident. The next day, When he stopped by his son's baseball practice, he realized the training was taking place on an abandoned field, and the conditions were ridiculous, as Justin had mentioned. The lawn was patchy and uneven, there was a lot of noise from the traffic on the adjacent roads, and there were only broken and worn-out benches for the players. "Look at Todd. I bet that kid's got something," one of the parents standing beside Danny said, distracting the officer. "I assume he's the local star?" Danny grinned, looking at Todd throwing perfect pitches. "Right, sir," said another dad, his gaze riveted on Todd. "You're absolutely right. Only 17 years old, but what a find. And just look at that boy. I mean, I didn't even look like that when I was 25. Danny nodded in agreement. "I can see why he's all the praises, sir. By the way, I heard our chances for the season aren't that great?" "Unfortunately, yes, sir," groaned the man. "I mean, after the whole murder thing, the kids barely have access to the right training resources. Now, the coach is our only hope." "Oh, please," a woman cut him off. "I wouldn't put my hopes in a man like him." Danny's brows furrowed. "Haven't you ever seen how aggressive he's with the kids?" she snarled. "He is so rude sometimes. He can make those kids hate the game. And after the club director's murder, things have only worsened. The only good thing about the coach is his son, Todd, who plays for us. Let's be honest here, without him, we wouldn't be so high in the rankings, and if we win, many of the boys can get noticed by the scouts and win the ticket to a new life." And that's when it hit Danny. "Especially Todd." He whispered. "Where are you going?" the woman asked as Danny was heading to the exit. "Something came up at work," he lied and left the practice. As Danny reached his car, he dialed John again and asked him for the club director, Mr. Hamilton's home address. Danny drove to Mr. Hamilton's house to investigate the case further when he noticed a woman pulled over and got out of her car. She stood still for a moment with tears streaming down her face, then she walked a few steps, only to collapse to the ground, sobbing. Danny took a deep breath and approached her. "I'm assuming you're Mrs. Hamilton," he asked the woman, offering his handkerchief. The woman wiped at her tears and rose to her feet. "Yes, but, I'm sorry, do I know you?" she asked, sniffling. Danny showed his badge and said, "I'm sorry to hear about your husband. I just wanted to." "Police again," she snapped. "I have told y'all everything I know, haven't I? Why are you here, troubling me again and again instead of finding my husband's killer?" Danny calmly told her there were new leads and that he needed to search Mr. Hamilton's room again. Thankfully, Mrs. Hamilton caved and let Danny in. Those cops searched his study several times but didn't find anything. "But you can have a look," she said, leaving the room. As he looked through the late Mr. Hamilton's study, Danny noticed everything was in place. Mr. Hamilton's laptop was clean and untouched, the files were neatly arranged on shelves, and even the magazines were clearly arranged. Only one thing stood out, a messy stack of papers behind his desk. As Danny looked through the papers, he realized they were copies of the birth certificates of all the children on the team. And it was then an idea struck him. "Hello, John? Can you please run a check on someone? Anthony Karl's son. The man goes by Coach Karl. I want to know about his son," he asked his partner on call. "Give me a minute, Chief," John said, and Danny could hear some murmuring on the other end of the line. Then John's voice appeared. "Hi, Chief, yeah, got it. Which son, the older or younger?" "Oh, he's got two?" Danny's brows arched in surprise. "The older one, please." "Ugh, well, his name is Barney. The boy's 21. Lives in another city, apparently with his grandmother. He's not enrolled anywhere, no records of any trouble with the police." "And the younger one?" asked Danny. "Kid's named Todd, 17, plays for a baseball league, and by the way, he goes to the same school as Justin," his partner said. "Can you send me their file photos?" "Kinda urgent," Danny insisted. "Done, mate," John replied, and Danny hung up the phone, his eyes fixed on Todd's photo. Coach Karl tried to shove the officers as he was cuffed. "You have the right to remain silent, Coach. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Danny reminded him, hurling him up to his feet. "What are you even arresting me for?" he screamed. "Get off of me." The entire audience gasped, and the referee stopped the match as their eyes were drawn to Coach Karl. "Dad! What's going on?" Justin took off his helmet, rushing up to his father in confusion. "Why are you arresting Coach?" "Todd," Danny turned to Coach Karl's son. "Do you have something to confess to your fellow players? To these boys, aged 14 to 17? Todd gulped in fear. Actually. Well, maybe it is difficult for you when someone calls you with the wrong name. So let's fix my question," Danny said. "Barney, do you have something to confess to your fellow players? That you are actually 21 years old, for example? How the hell did you even find that?" Coach Karl grumbled, glaring at Danny. "I had my suspicions, Coach," Danny admitted. "The day Mr. Hamilton found out your son had disguised himself so he could play at a high level, he was brutally attacked and killed. You did everything so your son's lie wasn't caught. Am I right?" As Danny revealed the truth before everyone, Barney squared his shoulders and began crying. I didn't like it here, but Dad sort of forced me," he sobbed. "And he also went too far for his lies, didn't he?" Danny added disappointedly as Coach Karl was carried to the police cruiser.